this my thing.
I know. Well, I don't know why we can't figure it out. I'll turn this off.
All right, guys, we're live.
Wonderful.
Well, welcome, Luke and Kat. You guys, we're sitting here with Luke and Kat of course, Luke and Kat Photography. I'm Ben Hartley with Six Figure Photography, and this is going to be incredible. I am super excited to have these two beautiful and wonderful and amazingly positive and encouraging people with us today, and letting us in on some knowledge. They're going to school us a little bit, and I'm excited.
Right.
Fresh on you guys.
We're excited too.
Well, I just want to start. I want to hear more about you two and just how you got started into this whole crazy thing called photography, and specifically like wedding photography, right? Tell us more about that.
Well, our backstory is that we both grew up showing cattle in 4-H and FFA, which is really interesting now because I think people like generally see my haircut and they're like, that girl has held a cow pooper scooper before? And I'm like, yes, I have. Anyway, we grew up showing in 4-H and FFA, and then I'm from Texas where we live now. Luke's from Indiana. We met at a cattle show in South Dakota back in 2004. And then, like, thanks to Facebook and MSN Messenger, like,
Yeah.
we actually, we fast forwarded to somewhere close to where we are today. So when we got married, like every other member of my family that is a man, Luke started working for my family's cattle ranch.
Yeah, and one of my jobs on the ranch was taking pictures of all of the cattle that were for sale. Well, Kat and I are super competitive people. We will flip a Monopoly board in a heartbeat if we think we're losing. And we still like find random little like hotels around the house if we're like cleaning things from when we've got mad before. But we wanted to learn to take the best photos possible of cows. It sounds very trivial now, but at the time we were like looking at everything we could on YouTube, and we were asking questions to our wedding photographer and all of these things we could do just to take pictures of cows. And so since, like Kat mentioned, I'm from Indiana, when I was out taking pictures of the cattle, I'd take pictures of random things like flowers or trees or like a tractor, like just stuff that was around me. And we put that on this blog that we had, and this is before like every 7-year-old had a blog. It was a great way to like keep in touch with my family up north. And I didn't have to like, have like a group text message to everybody and be like, here's what we did today, or here's what's going on down here. So we put those pictures up, and then one of my buddies that I went to college with said, like, he got engaged, and he's like, hey, Luke, why don't you and Kat take our engagement photos? And I was like, Bryce, listen, like, I don't know anything about people photos. Like, I can take pictures of cows or like a random dandelion, but people photos, like, no, we can't do this. He's like, just try it, and if it doesn't work, we'll find somebody else. I'm like, okay, that sounds great. So again, Kat and I went into like major research mode, and we're trying to like figure out everything we could about people photos. Looking back, we really didn't know anything because it was the middle of August. We started at about noon, which in Texas, it's about 212 degrees outside then. So it was so hot, we sweated through like every layer of clothing. It was a complete wet t-shirt contest by the end. But some of the photos that we got were, I don't want to say, they were good for us at the time. We were really, really proud of them.
They were really good for, if looking back, how little we didn't even know we knew. Like, we didn't know, come here from Sikkim. Man, I sound really Texas when I say that, but we didn't even know what we didn't know. And we did pretty good with that. So then naturally, I think so many people's stories unfold similarly. Once we posted those pictures, more people were like, take our pictures, take my family pictures. People from our church were like, take our kids' pictures before we go back to school. Which the segue to weddings for that is we realized we didn't really like taking kids' pictures. So
yeah, we learned pretty quick that like flower girls and ring bearers were about it for us on kids. But yeah, so we just started taking pictures of people we knew or that knew us, and it snowballed into me having to make the decision to either like say, hey, we can't do this photography thing because I have this job with Kat's family's business, or walk away from the family business, which is super scary, and start this own business, this new business venture for us. And that's what we did. And then Kat at the time was working as a graphic designer for a cattle magazine. And then maybe 6 or 8 months after I went full time, we had to make the decision again, are we going to hire somebody to help me with all of this stuff that I'm doing, or is Kat going to quit her job? And we both work full time for ourselves, which is super, super scary, because then there's no outside income and we're responsible for all of it. And there's some days when we're like, we have made the biggest mistake ever.
Right. I can remember whenever we were talking, because I mean, again, just like so many other people, we were spending so much time working round the clock, working my normal job, and it was just exhausting. And Luke was like, look, when we book, from today on, when we book 12 weddings, you're going to quit your job. And I was like, okay. So I have my little tally on like a notepad taped on my computer. And then when we booked that 12th wedding, I was like, oh, I'm really supposed to quit my job now? I was scared to do it. But when I had a really great boss that when I quit, he said, well, I always knew you were too smart to work for someone else your whole life. So I was like, well, thank you for saying that. And I mean, really, every year that goes by that I'm like, wow, it's been 2 years, 3 years since I quit my job. I can't believe that it's been that long, because I can remember thinking, if we just can float for 6 months, we'll be great. But here we are.
And there was a couple of times where it was a little hairy. We're like, we need to book a wedding right now. We have no clue what we're doing, but we need some money. But really, that's one of the biggest things that I think has helped us kind of catapult us to where we are today, is we knew we had to make it work. We couldn't rely on anybody else. So we had to find ways to make it work. And we got creative a couple of times trying to figure out what it was that we were going to do to pay the bills. But that's kind of how we got into wedding photography. Like Kat said, we shot every type of portrait session possible. We knew newborns were not it, because little kids, while they look peaceful and sweet, they're not to photograph, or they're not for us. And then families and kids, that just wasn't something we jived with. So when we finally decided to specialize in weddings, that's all we did, and that's all we do now is weddings, and then engagements and bridal sessions that go along with that.
Yeah, that's awesome. And you guys are just, I mean, you've seen such success. I mean, that's why we're sitting down together. You guys are really blown up in an awesome way, and your work is so beautiful. And now isn't it crazy to think that now you're actually like educating others and you're teaching others? And I just think it really is incredible. And what you said, I resonate so strongly with, in regards to like, when you throw yourself all in, you have to make it work. There's no other option. It really is a sink or swim type of scenario. One of our members of the six-figure photography community actually asked this question of like, when did you know, like when you wanted to jump in, like to go completely full time, and how did you make that transition? And I love what you said, 12 weddings, and then you were just going to go. I think creating that type of like a point, that like this is it, this is going to be the time. For me, it was once I had like 3 months worth of like living expenses in the bank as my
much more responsible than our method.
Yeah, the way that we kind of thought about it, and that we had no clue again what we were doing back then. But I was like, okay, 12 weddings would equal close to what Kat's salary was. At the same time, I was thinking, we're not going to book 12 weddings in like a year or in 2 years. I'm like, we've got plenty of time to figure this out. I was just trying to be supportive of Kat, because she's like, hey, I want to quit my job and work full time for the business because you need me. I'm like, okay, well, let's do it, in 12 weddings. So I'm thinking that's 24 months away. Like, we'll figure the rest of it out between now and then. But it came a lot quicker than what we thought it would.
I think the decision to go full-time is very similar to what I've heard people talk about in terms of knowing as a husband and wife when it's time to have a kid, which we don't have any kids, so this will tell you where we're at in that curve. But they say, like, well, if you wait until you have enough money or enough time or whatever, you're never going to do it. So that's kind of how we approached going full time. I was like, look, if we wait until we have enough money saved up, we think, or we have enough weddings on the books, like we'll probably never feel secure to do it. So we have to just, take the floaties off and jump. And we knew we were willing to hustle, like to try our best to hustle and do the work to grow our business. And man, every day we have to keep hustling. That's just the brass tacks of it. But it's been really, really fun, and we've been really, really, really blessed, we think.
It's awesome. I feel like there's a great contraceptive joke to make here about the analogy, but I probably shouldn't say it. Anyway, okay, so you guys, I want to rewind a little bit here. One of my favorite things about you two, your business and your work is, well, it's you two. It's your relationship and your dynamic. And I want to know, and actually someone in the community actually asked Victor, he wanted to know, how did you guys meet? So bullet points, tell me a little bit about how you guys met.
Yeah, so we both grew up in 4-H and FFA and showing cattle. And there's a mutual friend that Kat and I share. She's from Indiana. And there's a breed of cattle called Shorthorn, or named Shorthorn, whatever the proper terms would be. And I had a Shorthorn steer that I wanted to take to this big junior national show in South Dakota. Every year, the breed has this huge show where everybody from the U.S. comes. So I was in the truck and trailer with Allison, our friend, and her family, went to South Dakota, and she knew Kat from being on the Shorthorn Junior board together. So we were hanging out together, but the way that Kat always explains it was that she always told Allison that Allison should date me.
Well, I would always say to my friend, whenever I found out that Luke was kind of in her circle, I was like, you should really date that Luke guy. He's so funny. He's so cute, blah, blah, blah. Because, realistically, I was from Texas. He was from Indiana. I didn't really ever think that would happen for us. And my friend was always like, no, he's more of my brother's friend. Like, I don't think so. Well, then turns out, like, Luke's going to lie and say this isn't the case. But he was like, in the early stages of our relationship, he would always say that he had a big crush on me from the first time he met me. And I was like, no, people don't get crushes on me. I'm like, I get crushes on people. And then they're like, no, we're friends. But he had a crush on me, which is funny.
Weird. The truth is, Kat couldn't keep her hands off of me. So, so we met there at that cattle show. And then Facebook was very new at the time. MSN Messenger was, awesome. So somehow I got Kat's MSN Messenger info, and we would just talk at random times when we'd both log in, and it would say V8 Catherine is online, and we'd talk and visit about things. Then was it 5 years later at the Indiana State Fair?
No, it was just 1 year later.
Sorry, 1 year. Time flies
when
you're having fun.
I'm going to give the really abridged version. My dad is like a judge for cattle shows, and I had gone to the Indiana State Fair with my dad. My dad was judging, and I passed Luke in the barn, and I was like, hey, I know him. And so I stopped and I was talking to him, and he was out washing a bull, and I was just making conversation, and I was like, wow, those are really big balls, and talking about the bull. And Luke was like, thanks, I get that a lot. But anyway, really, that was kind of like when we really started liking each other. And then, of course, it's complicated on Facebook for a while, which is hilarious. And then finally, then the rest is history. Luke came to Texas A&M on a livestock judging scholarship. And then that's only 2 hours away from where I live. And I had gone to A&M as well. So then, really, once he got to Texas, he was here for the long haul.
That's true. Yeah.
Wow, that was a long story.
I know, and it seems like all we do is talk about cows. And I
know every time I ask a question, I'm going to ask you a question about how do you get clients? And you're going to be like, well, Ben, it starts with the cattle.
It really does. It does, and that's whenever we have high tone Houston brides walk in and they see our degrees on the wall are from A&M in animal science. They're like, what is animal science and why are you taking my pictures? This makes no sense. So then we have to go back to Kat admiring the big balls on the wash rack and all of this stuff. And so yes, a bunch of our story is very deeply rooted in agriculture.
That's awesome. So I do actually want to begin to talk a little bit more about clients and about how you find them. It's always a question that gets brought up within the photography community of attracting new leads, getting clients in the door. We just did a poll recently. We asked hundreds of photographers and had a massive response. And we asked them, what are the main ways that you receive your inquiries? And a resounding amount, 59%, close to 60, all said word of mouth. And I want to hear from you two, how do you get your name out there? How do you get clients in the door?
I
didn't want to talk. You go. I didn't want to talk over you.
To completely agree with what the majority said, word of mouth is all that Kat and I do. We have done some traditional advertising in the past, and we'll talk about that later. It was a huge
waste of money,
and it got us nothing, and it was just awful. So, but what we knew, and the way that we kind of got to this was originally, when we started our business, we were Our Little Ranch Photography. Sounds hokey, we're embarrassed of it now, but that's what it was, because we have like a little portion fenced off around our house of the big ranch. So we'd always say, like, we don't know what's happening on your side of the ranch, but over on our little ranch, we're eating Oreos as the cows walk by, or some random thing like that. So it just stuck. But the number one thing that we realized was everybody wasn't calling us by Our Little Ranch Photography. They're like, you have to get Luke and Kat. Or anytime people would actually meet with us in person, that's when they would hire us. So we knew that us, the Luke and Kat and Luke, were the things that we needed to be selling. So when we focused on that and kind of had that realization that we are kind of what our business is, we're not, part of this other company, then we were able to start really connecting with those right type of clients for us. They're people that are just like us. And then really, I think anybody who watches this will agree, when you love a product or when you love people or anything, you can't help but talk about it. So when we're just our normal selves and get those right people in the door by being like genuine and authentic to us, then those people go out and tell their friends who are just like them and just like us about Luke and Kat Photography, or about us. And that's kind of just this, I wish I had a really good answer, like, oh, we do X, Y, and Z to get these word of mouth referrals, but we don't.
It's a lot, yeah. Honestly, our word of mouth referrals come about they unfold in such an organic way, just by us being really true to ourselves and making sure that we let people see the real versions of us. Like, for example, whenever we're on an engagement shoot, if I step in a pile of cow crap, I might say a bad word, and that's okay, because I'm willing to be real with our clients. And then in turn, I find that they're willing to be real with us, and they let us in on really intimate moments, and we get great pictures. But then they remember that experience they had with us, both our client experience, gifts and things like that, but also the moments where we're taking their pictures and we laugh together, or in some cases we cry together, things like that. They can't help but talk about us to their friends. And as far as the name change goes, it's a lot easier to talk about somebody's name rather than their business, we felt like. So it was so easy for people to say, well, you've got to get Luke and Kat, we love them. It's no different than if I were coming to Ohio and I were looking for a really good steakhouse to eat at that wasn't, a chain like Texas Roadhouse. I would probably text you and be like, hey, Ben, where should we eat? We're coming through. Where is a good place? And I'm going to go 100% of the time with a friend's referral of a place to eat in their hometown rather than Yelp, even though I love Yelp. And so we wanted to create the same type of experience in our business where people would ask their friend, hey, who did you get for your wedding photographer? And then they would say, like, you've got to get Luke and Kat.
Yeah. One way that we do get word of mouth referrals, it sounds obvious, but I think we were scared at the very beginning to ask for it. But we have a brides group on Facebook that has all of our past brides in it. And we'll go in there and just ask, like, say, hey guys, do you know anybody who's recently engaged that you'd love to tell, them about us? Or when we're out on an engagement session, for like, hey, you seem to be loving this engagement session and what we're doing. are there any of your friends that you think would like this similar thing?
Mm-hmm.
You know, I think so many times we try to figure out all of these other things to do to stimulate those word of mouth referrals, aside from just asking for them. And asking for them is the cheapest thing you can do because it doesn't require gifts or anything else.
Right.
Just say, hey, is there anybody you know that we should connect with?
We have one bride who, she's just been incredible for us. We shot her wedding back in 2012, and I think we can trace like 8 referrals that stemmed from her, whether it's her or bridesmaids or things of that nature. But when she has a friend get engaged without us ever asking for her to do this, she will email them and us copied together and be like, hey, I want you to meet my wedding photographers. I bet that they're going to send you something in the mail, so reply back with your address. And at first we were like, what are you talking about?
I'm not
and
sending them anything in the mail.
She's like, just send them, you know, you're good at it. And so then really when she does that, we just write them a note and drop an issue of Southern Weddings magazine, because we love that, in the mail and say like, hey, we'd love to talk to you. We're Houston wedding photographers, whatever. That has turned into some great business for us, and we never asked her to do it. She just is chomping at the bit to make this little matchup for us.
That is so cool. I love that. I want that bride. Give me that bride. That is so awesome, you guys. Hey, you brought up something there that I want to ask more about. You just like touched on it, but I think it's really powerful. So you have, you mentioned a Facebook group of all of your current and past brides. Tell me more about that.
Oh, okay. So this, I don't think we're the first ones to do it by any means, but we have a group. And I would say, because I'm sure a lot of people that watch this are going to think that, at one point I was like, well, I don't know that we have enough brides. I think we started it when we had something like maybe 45 brides in there. And I was like, that's not an impressive number. That's not a big group. I don't want them to get in there and think there's not enough. But from the beginning, it's been great. And what we use the group for is building this community of like our brides to share their experience with each other, whether it be like, hey, what type of DJ should I get? Things of that nature. But then I also share a lot of stuff that's like just marriage building type stuff in there. We used the bride group. The best usage we've used it for our business was we created like a poll, a survey, and posted in that group and said like, and this was scary.
It was terrifying. It was more than scary. It was terrifying.
It was an anonymous survey, and we said, you know, we want to get your feedback from your experience with us. And we had all kinds of questions on there, but the one that really changed everything for us is we said, like, you know, what is one thing that we could have done differently? And I was thinking, like, man, we're going to get some mean stuff because it's anonymous. It wasn't mean at all. At the time, we were all, like, a la carte based, build-as-you-go type photography packages. We didn't have a package. And I would say an overwhelming amount of our brides said that they wanted some type of a package that was more like a leather seats, sunroof, like drive off the lot, ready to go. So really like a high-up, all-inclusive type package. And we were like, well, they say they want that, but I don't know if they really can afford that, like if they saw the price tag. But then we just listened to that group. We created that package, and then we book that package all the time now. And that's something we would have never known or even had the confidence to go out and ask for if we wouldn't have got that feedback from that group.
Yeah,
so
because our philosophy has always been that we wanted to kind of have our price point low, them get to know Luke and Kat, and then realize that our value is so much more, and then they'll add on things as they go through this process
like
with
a bigger
us.
album.
Like a bigger album or wedding day digital files or anything like that. But we wanted to get them in the door, then wine them and dine them afterwards, because we thought they didn't know anything about us and about, you know, our philosophy and things like that. And so when Kat says we asked our brides, I think that that's something I haven't heard very many people do. I know people like photographers learn from other photographers, which is all fine and dandy. But I think the knowledge and the input that the actual brides that have hired us and worked with us have is so much more valuable than somebody else telling you what you should do, you know, because they're saying, here's what we wanted. So when they said we wanted that all-inclusive package at the very beginning, we created one that had all of the...
I mean, we just looked at what does everybody end up with, we created it, and then, of course, like I said, we were like, no one's going to buy this. Like, it's just too high of a price tag. I mean, we felt like people would get to that point, but they needed to get to it in small increments over our year of being involved with them. But actually, one of our brides in the survey put it very simply that when you buy a Cadillac, you don't want to have to take it back to the dealership to get cruise control added. And I was like, okay, I get that. So once we started offering it, we book it all the time. We found that our referrals have increased from it because no longer are we having to continually sell to our clients. We sell at the beginning, and then the rest of the time we just provide a great experience. And this sounds totally corny, but love them up, and they go out and refer the heck out of us.
Yeah. So, like, talking specific numbers, right quick. You can get us to shoot your wedding. You can get Looking Cat to shoot your wedding for $4,000. That's what our coverage starts at. Our all-inclusive starts at $8,600. Well, what we realized is by doing this, we took our average booking from $4,000 to $8,600. And then, like Kat said, there's no sales afterwards. There's none of that awkward interaction of us trying to sell them or to get their money. It's all done at the beginning, and then the rest of the time is just us having a good time with our clients.
That's awesome, you guys. Yeah, that's really sweet. So you've talked a lot about service, and I love how you said, like, loving them up. That's so good. I mean, that's what we do. It's like 50% of our job is to provide an amazing experience for our clients. So tell me a little bit about some of the ways that you guys do that you go the extra mile.
I thought you were going to say that you love them up.
I know, I was totally going to say it, and I wanted to say feel, instead, but then love, and then
I know what you're saying, that 50% of what we offer is service-based. I don't want to, like, disagree with you, but we'll just have a little healthy debate.
Sure.
Yes, we read a book called Rework. If you haven't read Rework, buy it now, quit what you're doing, and read it.
Quit what I'm doing right now. Okay, guys.
Yes, like, we'll come back in a week after you've got it from Amazon Prime. You can read it, and then we'll visit about it. But one of the things that it talks about in the book is focusing on your epicenter. And if I could talk, the example they gave was a hot dog cart. The epicenter of a hot dog cart is the hot dog, because without the hot dog,
yeah, what he's meaning to say is the weenie, but he's trying to avoid saying
yes, the
weenie.
actual meat product, because the fancy bun, the relish, the ketchup, the fancy cart, none of that would exist if you don't have the weenie, the hot dog. So when Kat and I read that, we knew that the epicenter
of our business was always going to be great wedding photography, great wedding photos.
Yes. So once we read that, we really focused that our number one thing that we offer is great wedding images. An exceptional experience is part of that, but without those images, we don't have a business. And I think when we were back in our little ranch days, we were trying to minimize the photography side of things because those, like, our craft wasn't where we wanted it to be, and instead trying to sell this wonderful experience. But when we kind of flipped the switch on that and realized that we have to provide great photos, that is the number one thing that our brides and grooms are hiring us for. If we don't give them any gifts, if we don't write them any notes, that is what they've hired us for. This other stuff is just kind of gilding the lily.
Yeah, it's just like the ketchup and the mustard. But it's very important because now
Yes.
I personally don't like a hot dog without ketchup. So we from the beginning, we've wanted to give our people a great experience, but I really don't think it ever came from a place of we're going to give them a great experience so they'll refer us. We want to give our people a great experience because we're just so thankful for them. When we talked earlier about, the decision to be full-time in our business, there's people, I can name people by name that are responsible for us being able to follow that dream. And those names are our brides and grooms. Like, they are the reason we're able to do what we want to do. And so our experience and the gifts we give them and the notes we send them, it's all based on the fact that we're just so grateful for them. And by coming from that place, I think they know that from the beginning that everything we give them comes from such a genuine place. We started out with our client experience being 100% no cost, which was really, we just started out by writing them notes. And that really, it was small. It was something small we did. We wrote all the notes at the very beginning, and then this sounds really technical, but in the corner where the stamp goes, we would put the date that they would get sent out. We would know on the calendar, like, these are going to go out in October. And then we just grab them out of a recipe box in October and send all the October ones out. But we did all of that the day someone would book us. We'd have their entire experience planned, which at that time was only notes. As we raised our prices, every time we've raised our prices, or every time someone invests in us, so if they add on a bridal session or something like that, we have an experience that matches that. So when we've raised our prices, we've gone from just handwritten notes to welcome gifts, welcome packets,
or increase like the quality of our notes. We don't get a big pack at Big Lots or Hobby Lobby anymore. We have actual letterpressed cards, that are very nice. They're calligraphed on the front. Anything we could kind of just up the ante a little bit. And so the way that we've always came up with these gifts, it's not photography-based gifts, because like Kat said, we want to be genuine. They are like ways of us to express gratitude towards our clients. And if we're just giving them photography-based stuff, if we're just giving them prints, that's kind of like obvious. So when we get to know our couples, we get to know the things that are meaningful to them. If they say, they love going to this concert and that's where they first met or where he proposed, if that concert comes around again, we'll try to get them tickets to that. Or we'll try to get them, like a CD, or if they like albums, something like that that's very personal to them. And we've always had the figure, regardless of how much we charge or what our packages cost, that we're going to spend 10% back on our couples.
That's always been a way that we've kind of made our budget for our client experience. So 10% is a good base point. And the same thing with the add-ons. The add-on a bridal session with us, that's $500. So then we have $50 that we would spend on a gift for them.
So, okay, there's a lot to unpack there, like a ton to unpack. I'm trying to think about even where to begin with this. So my mind is going and thinking about numbers right now, which I want to get to in a minute. But let's rewind, and I like this idea that you said, whenever they increase their value and their commitment to you, you reward that with something in return. And so maybe let me ask you a question at like an example. So let's say I hire you, and then I decide that I want to add on an engagement shoot. So 6 months in, once I add that on, you guys then kick back and send me something in return, or how does that play out?
So it works either before or after. Kind of, it's not like we shoot engagement session that they've added on and then we do X afterwards. We know they've invested more in us, so we want to invest more in them.
So for the engagement session, a natural, and we don't do the same thing for everybody. We kind of have, I would say, a skeleton of our client experience, but then we want everybody's experience to be somewhat unique to them. So for an engagement session, we would maybe design a softcover book and send them as a surprise. We love Richard Photo Lab has great softcover books that we like to use. Or we also, depending on what the images look like from their engagement session and the timing, we love to get a canvas and put that out at their gift table at the wedding. So it's never like, oh, good, you've bought the engagement session, now you have a $50 credit with us or whatever. It's not really like that. It's more like, I don't want them to be able to trace it back to, this is my exact payback for buying an engagement session. We want to just be able to surprise them, but then also reassure them that they made a good investment in us. So something like a softcover book or a canvas.
Or we send out a questionnaire that they can answer tons of questions on, and we can look through that, and let's say they have a pet. We have 2 English Bulldogs that we are absolutely crazy about. So we might send them a little gift basket full of like pet toys for their dog, or a gift card to like Petco, and write a little note that says like, go have like a date with your dog, or whatever the case may be. Just little things that if we can be unique and personal to them, we definitely want to be. Or if it matches our tangible based business. Correct.
We are tangible based, and so most of our couples invest in tangible products, but if they don't, I'm always happy to go ahead and make that investment for them. in the client experience.
Yeah. So this is neat. Okay, so I guess I want to ask questions a little bit more about like managing this, because to me it's a little daunting, the idea of thinking about thinking through the things that connect you personally to each client, you know, like writing down those notes. And so I think you kind of touched on it with this questionnaire, but maybe you can unpack a little bit more. So I'm curious about that. And then also, do you have any like tools or things that help you guys manage this stuff, or like vendors that you like to go through? I mean, I'm just thinking about the daunting task of like, oh, this person likes Chihuahuas. I'm going to go spend 2 hours of my day researching a place that I can send them a Chihuahua basket. Of, you know what I mean? Like, to me, I just feel like, oh my God, that is so much commitment and time and money.
So we book all of our couples over the phone, and then before we'll officially put their date on our calendar.
Their engagement session on our calendar.
Correct. Before we'll schedule anything further, they have to come to our house for a meet and greet. So when they're here or when I'm on the phone with them, I have a little piece of paper, and it could just be a random Post-it note, you know, whatever the case may be. But I'm writing down little things about them or little things we've talked about. So I don't want to say that my memory is great, because it's definitely not. But when they come for the meet and greet, 5 minutes before they get here, I can pull out my little note sheet and say, oh, this is what we talked about. I remember, you know, this unique little thing. So it gives us a few little connection points. We can put this all in a Google Doc. We can put it in a manila folder, like keep it somewhere. Then we can always reference that when it comes time to gift them something.
So it's really, man, what you're describing, I know, because I am the least organized person in the world most of the time. But it's nothing fancy. I'm pretty sure it's free. We have a Google Doc that we have all of our brides listed that basically, I know there's probably software that does this, but Google Docs is what we use for it. It's just
Google Docs. Just I throw in a vote for Google Docs.
Yes.
It's just one a spreadsheet in Google Docs. We have all of our brides listed. And the way it's set up, it's like their first names, their married last name, and then it lists out all of the experience and the dates and when I have to do stuff. But as much as I can do at the exact time they book us, I go ahead and do that. So for example, when we talked about vendors that make this easier, for our welcome gift, we send cookies from, you might know this because you're from Ohio, a bakery called Cheryl's.
Yeah, I freaking love Cheryl's.
I know. So Cheryl's has a business gift services that we have used from the this was after the notes. This was our next gift we started including, but they will send out cookies to your clients in this beautiful tin that they have your logo on. It looks really professional. And it's so simple. All we have, it includes a note. You get it all set up where they will include the note. So our gift is like 12 white buttercream frosted cookies in a tin with our logo on the top of it, and it has some note that says like love is sweet, but you know, I don't know, it's something corny we've got on there that we really like that I wrote. But anyway, it sounds daunting. All I do is I email my gift consultant at Cheryl's. I send an email, all it says in the subject is cookie order, and I put their address, and that is it. It's taken care of. They bill our credit card. It's something like $16. That is so cheap, and it makes, like, they handle everything. Then our clients get it, they Instagram it, and, like, we're already out of the gate with a really good experience that was super simple because all they had to do was copy and paste their address from ShootQ, and they booked us. That's it, you know.
Yeah, and I know it is daunting when, like, if we print out our entire experience from start to finish, it is like 2 pages, 2 columns of everything that's in there. We did not have that at the very beginning. It is something we have worked towards. Like Kat said earlier, we started solely with notes. That was it. We got that figured out. Then we are like, okay, we can add something on here now. Because if we would have tried to do that from the very beginning, we would have failed. There's no way we could have done it. It'd have been so much for us to like try to think about. We'd be like, we're not doing anything. Like, we'll worry about that next weekend or whatever.
So we have like a set gift that we give at every engagement session and a set gift that we give at every bridal session. And the engagement session is like a marriage book, and the bridal session is like the newlywed cookbook. And so we have a closet full of those books, and it's not. I mean, that's not hard to do. We just know, like, we have an engagement session. We need to wrap a book. We need to put From the Kitchen of Luke and Kat, and then put their names, and then it's ready to go. But it's something that makes a big difference, and it's a great way to end a session, to be like, oh, also we have something for you guys, and it never fails. By the time we get to the bridal session, they're like, you give us stuff all the time, and we're like, I know, because we really like you. Like, we do. We want them to know that. We want them to always feel really well taken care of. Like, just like, you know, when you go to a really nice steakhouse and they put the napkin in your lap, you're like, oh, wow, that's how I want our people to feel. You know, I want them to feel really spoiled.
We had one bride that spent a lot of money with us. And on the day of her wedding, we brought a surprise gift canvas and put it on the gift table with this little note. She saw it and was like, guys, listen. She was like, I don't know how you guys make any money because you've given us these gifts all of the time. And we knew that we haven't spent that much on gifts for them. It's about 10%, like we said. But the value of those is so much more than what we even realize it is. And that's when she said that, we were like, okay, like, this is really working. This is something that we need to make sure that we continue.
Yeah, that's wild, you guys. So I want to talk about that, though, because numerically, I mean, I did a little bit of the numbers here. So if a majority of our couples are spending around that 8,000 point, 8,600 is that collection. So 10% is $860 a client. So then I'm going to put you on the spot here a little bit. So then, you know, let's say you do 3 clients a month. We're at like over 2,500.
We do 15 weddings a year. So
oh, wow. That's awesome. That's it. That's so good.
And if you want to think about, here's the other thing to think about with that $800 figure, because believe me, we went there too. Whenever we were like, okay, we're going to do 10%. For us, we aren't wanting to have like a 1-year relationship with our clients. We're not wanting the last time we spoil them and surprise them to be when we are done with them shooting their wedding. So well, I hope none of them are watching this, but right now we've got a whole room in our house with a huge project we've been working on for all of our past clients to surprise them. That, again, we've got people who we shot their wedding 3 years ago that are going to get something from us. So it's more of a lifetime spend. And we just know that we're going to surprise them. At Christmas, we send them stuff. On their anniversary, we send them stuff. So we just have that budget that we know, okay, well, we might get there year 4 of their marriage. Because I think it would be definitely a little overkill with some of our all-inclusive brides to say, like, okay, well, we got to get up to the 10% mark, so here's a gift card to Target.
We'll buy you a car.
Right. So we think of it more as a lifetime investment in them.
So, man, I got to go back at this. Luke, you started this off being like, look, it's about the weenie. It's about the weenie. After hearing all this, I'm calling shenanigans, man. Like, I understand that you guys make really great work and your weenie is cooked to perfection.
Thank you.
But everything that you're doing, this is 50%. I mean, it really is. And I don't think that number should make your work like be cut short. And maybe that's the problem. I think a lot of photographers think about that idea of like, if I just provide a service, like, then I don't need to make good work. And I think that's bullshit. But I think that the reality is you guys are getting so much experience. And
I think that's the attitude he was trying to get across. That basically, I think there's kind of 2 camps of photographers nowadays. It's the personality, experience-driven photographers. And then there's the, artists and the craft-based photographers. And I think that there is definitely a return, and at least the brides that we serve, they are really wanting a photographer that is passionate about their craft, someone who has great work, someone who knows what they're doing. And I think that's what he was trying to touch on.
Yeah.
I think the expression is like you can't market a bad
product. Well, we always say you can't make chicken salad out of chicken shit. Because, even if you are in like this gorgeous, mansion eating not good food, you would remember the horrible food, not the atmosphere in which you were eating it in. So if someone said, you guys have the option to keep doing what you're doing with your experience, and keep doing what you're doing with your experience, and your craft is going to go by the wayside, or focus on your images and not have the time to do everything else, we'd always pick our images. That's not to say that we still don't focus on the other stuff, but if push comes to shove, if we're incredibly busy or if we don't have the time to send out note cards or something like that because we're shooting and editing images or whatever the case may be, our main priority is always going to be on the images.
Yeah, I love this, man. If anybody, like the people who don't listen to this are going to be so missing out. This is so good. Awesome. Okay, what were you about to say, Kat? I'm sorry, I interrupted you.
I mean, I just think that we, at the end of the day, I think that if we give our clients this great experience and we give them really, really good, timeless images, they can't help but talk about us to their friends. They can't help but sing our praises. But if you remove any of those elements, they aren't going to talk about us. They aren't going to sing our praises. So we can give them great images and a bad experience or a non-brag-worthy experience, and they're probably just going to be like, yeah, my photos were good. That's the end. We can do the reverse of that. We can give them a fantastic experience and a bunch of crappy photos, and they're also not going to refer us. No. So I think they have to go hand in hand, but we definitely, we're total believers in that you've got to keep improving your craft.
Yeah, I love it. It's awesome. Well, I want to ask you all kinds of questions about your craft now and your work and all that stuff, but I feel like we should stay focused here, and so we'll have to save that for another time. But just hear me out. Just the stuff that you guys are creating, I love it. I love that you're on the context and just the quality that you're getting from that. It's so beautiful. Well, I guess I want to maybe end up with a couple final questions here. Are there any tools, any applications or software or companies or things and stuff that you feel like you couldn't imagine doing your business without, and that maybe not very many people are using?
Ooh, that's tricky, because I know everybody wants like the key to overnight success or like.
Well, I'm not asking that, but even if it just is a little thing.
I know, I'm trying to think.
Well, we've talked a lot about being tangible based. From the very beginning in our business, we wanted to have we wanted to include albums, but album design and album ordering was something that was really daunting and time consuming and draining. And we knew we wanted to include them. We knew for our pricing, we needed to include them. We wanted to be able to have albums in there and sell albums to our couples. We couldn't afford not to sell albums. That's how we always have looked at it. So the combination that we have now that works so well for us, that allows us to get albums to people so quickly, is we use Smart Albums to design our albums, and it's simple and fast. And then we print those albums through KISS, also totally simple to order. It's like easy. There's no complicated FTP ordering or order forms or anything like that. And I mean, as far as making a big difference in our bottom line, being able to easily design and sell and order albums has been a huge game changer for us.
The thing I was trying to think as Kat was talking on what little bit of wisdom I could share, but I think instead of trying to focus on certain products or saying oh, so-and-so blogged about this management software and it works great for them, I'm going to make that work for me, is instead, don't be afraid to say, that's not right for me. That does not work for us. Because there's plenty of things that Kat and I have tried that thousands of photographers use, but we don't like it.
Right.
It doesn't work for us, and I'm not going to try to make what we want, try to mold that into something else. Instead, we'll keep trying new things and figuring out what works for us. And for us, the best client management software available is Google Docs or an Excel spreadsheet. That's what works for us. So we're not going to try to say, oh, we're going to, try X or do this, or, oh, so-and-so said we should do this. Let's change everything and adapt towards that. Instead, we're like, hey, we're Luke and Kat. We live out here in the sticks with not very high-speed internet if our audio, or if we're all herky-jerky. So we just have to find things that work for us and not be ashamed of that.
Yeah, and just to expand on that, he touched on it. A lot of times people have asked us what advice do you have for us about blogging? That is a great example of something that doesn't work for us. We're not big on having a blog every day or even every week. Like when we have something to share, we share it. When we don't, we don't, because that's just never been a big part of our business. I never wanted to just get on the blog and toot the horn because I needed to because it was a Tuesday. Like, just find what works, and if it doesn't work, and if you've tried your best to make it work, just dedicate your time to something else.
I love you guys. That's fantastic advice. It really is amazing advice. Well, okay, I've got two final questions. One real one. The other one is not a real one. We opened up the opportunity for the six-figure community to ask you guys any questions, and we're going to give out a little prize here. But Valerie ended up winning. I think she had a great question to ask, and so I'm gonna ask this for you guys on her behalf. But she wanted to know. Well, let me just read the exact question. When starting out in your business, did you ever undercut yourself because you didn't think you had enough experience to charge your full worth? And if so, how did you finally break out of that and start increasing your prices and charging more what you're worth?
So that is an excellent question. And I don't think intentionally we ever undercut ourselves, but when we first started out, we based like our pricing and what we included off of what other photographers around us were doing. But we realized really quickly that even if we have the same money coming in, our money going out, our expenses are way different than what everybody else is doing. So when we put the pencil to it, we realized we were making like maybe $100 profit per wedding by the time we did everything, had, albums ordered and stuff like that. And when we realized that, then we were like, okay, we've got to figure out what works for Luke and Kat, because what works for, Joe and Sue down the road is not going to work for us.
Joe and Sue Photography are so pissed right now.
I know. Sorry, Joe and Sue.
Whoever they are, whoever Joe and Sue Photography are.
Yes, we didn't ever intentionally undercut ourselves, but we had no clue what we were doing. So we were doing that anyway, but just by being ignorant about a business that we thought we were running.
Well, and just to take it another direction with that question, I think there's definitely been times where clients have asked us to make special concessions for them.
Yes.
Whether it be we're having we really don't need you there for many hours, or we're having an elopement, but in fact when you get there it's not an elopement, or someone who says, I really don't want that album that's included in the package, can I trade that for the digital files? Things that no matter what it was, they wanted to make a deal before they'd hire us. And the longer we're in our business, and yes, we have made those deals before, we have learned that those were nightmare clients and we should not have accepted them. There's an SNL commercial that's hilarious if you ever watch it. It's called Red Flag. And it would be the red flag is when they ask us to change something or make a concession for them. And at the time, for whatever reason, whether we're wanting that, retainer, that income coming in, we're like, sure, we'll do that. Looking back, those have always been really problematic. So we want people to say yes to us on our terms. We don't want to say yes on their terms because a lot of times that ends up something they regret.
Yes, and we are photographers, and we have a photography business, but that is not our life. Our life is being able to stay up and watch Game of Thrones reruns until 3 a.m. and sleep till noon if we want to. Like that, our life is our number one concern. And when we've made these concessions before, we've realized that our life is what suffers. And for us, that's a no-go. That's not going to work. And so we've gotten to the point now where one of our friends, the best way that she could put it was, we were like Mrs. Doubtfire when they're going through the nanny interviews and she's like, I don't do laundry, I don't do dishes, I don't do newborns, I don't do this. We have found all of these things that we're not going to do by doing them initially, really now realizing it was a huge mistake. And so now when somebody says, can I swap the album for digital files? We just say, no.
No. because eventually someone, we have found too, I don't know if anybody else wants to get really interesting and look it up in their history, we found that when we accept, if we say no to one of those clients who says, like, can we swap that, something like that, whatever the red flag may be, if we follow up, a lot of times we end up booking another couple that is fantastic on their date, that are couples when we look back on our year, they're one of the highlights of our year. And I just really think that if you wait for the right people, they're going to come along, and don't take up a place on your calendar just because someone's there wanting to hire you when someone better might come along.
Yeah, I think I was looking at the questions that were underneath the post when you say free Saturday that we get to sit around at Kat's grandma's pool and do nothing all day. So I definitely think that not being afraid to say no and like stand up for yourself and for your life is one of the biggest things that we could share with anybody.
That's awesome. That's awesome advice. And I love your last thought there, Luke, because I know in the back of people's minds are saying, if I say no and they don't book, what am I going to do with that Saturday? You're going to enjoy your life. You know, that's why we have businesses. Like, dear Lord, I hope that you get to go enjoy your life and spend time with your friends and your family. So yeah, that's fantastic. Okay. You guys just launched a workshop, and fortunately / unfortunately for everybody else, it's already sold out. But I just want to ask you guys a little bit more about this. Just give a quick little commercial for your workshop, because while this one's sold out, there's going to be more, and I want our audience to know more about what you guys are going to be doing and having this work, because I am super jealous, actually. Confession, I'm jelly. But tell us about it.
Oh, well, that piggybacks really well off what we were just talking about, because our workshop is about building a business that supports the life that you really want. And so what it is, Kat and I have actually never attended a workshop. We just haven't.
Neither of us have ever second shot at a wedding ever.
I know, we're kind of unique in that. So we created this workshop as if it would be the workshop that we'd want to attend. It's an all-inclusive workshop here at the ranch. It's 3 days of learning and community with us and some of Houston's best wedding vendors. Every evening we're going to have a big styled shoot out on the ranch. It's going to be very casual. We're going to be in, like our Luke and Kat t-shirts like we have now, and like shorts and yoga pants, because that's what we do out here in the middle of nowhere. We're not trying to impress anybody and get all fancied up. And it's very intimate. There's only 12 people. There's only 12 seats available for it, because that's as many as our living room can hold. But we really want to make sure that we get to know everybody and that the sense of community is established here. So when it's 3 o'clock in the morning and you're at home trying to figure out what should I do with this problem that I'm having, you have somebody to reach out to that you know personally, not trying to put it in a social media group or ask somebody else, what is it that I should do? It's people that actually get to know you and can say, hey, I think this would be best for you.
Yeah, we're just really excited. 5 years from now, I hope that we look back and see that like this was the first workshop, and now we've got this big community of people who are passionate about building businesses, like Luke said, that support the life you want. For us, you heard us say we shoot 15 weddings a year. We've done years when we've had 30 weddings a year, but we just knew like ultimately our business exists to make our life better, not worse. And that's kind of what the community we're building is going to be about.
That sounds amazing. That sounds really incredible, you guys. Well, I'm super excited for the 12 that made it in this year, and excited for everyone else who has the opportunity and luxury to spend time with you guys and to learn from you and just to hang out. I love that you said yoga pants and tees. So
that's really all we wear all the time. If I could wear like t-shirt and shorts to a wedding, I know our brides and grooms would be cool with it, but I guarantee there'd be like a grandma or somebody to be like, wait, like that's your photographer? But that's really it's all we wear is Luke and Kat t-shirts.
Yeah, I have the camera strategically placed right here because I'm wearing no pants. And,
yeah. I'm in yoga pants and Luke's in fishing shorts.
Mm-hmm.
Wait, fishing shorts or fishnet?
Fish, and I don't do yoga. And
welcome to our life.
That's awesome. Okay, you guys. Well, my God, where can people find you? Where can people follow more of your work, learn more about you too, and learn from you guys? Tell us.
Yeah, so just go to lukeandcat.com, super simple, and it's got links to our blog, to our social media stuff, anywhere like that. Just, you can find us basically anywhere. We're Instagram-aholics, so we're always putting things up there, and rarely on our blog. Like Kat said, we'll maybe blog once a week or once every 2 weeks when we have something important to share. But yeah, go to our website. It's got our story on there. It's got pictures of our wonderful bulldogs that we're absolutely nuts about. And then you can find all of the other areas to learn more about Luke and Kat.
We also send out a newsletter for photographers every 2 weeks, and you can sign up for that at lcnewsletter.com. So it's like Luke Cat newsletter, but it's lcnewsletter.com.
Very cool. You guys, thank you so much for giving us an hour of your time. Like, honestly, myself, I personally have taken a ton from this, which I love. I love just continuing to learn and better ourselves and our businesses. And so I just want to thank you guys so much for being so open and generous with your time and your knowledge and your joy. This has been a great start to the week.
Yeah.
No problem. Thanks for having us.
Awesome. Well, we'll talk soon, guys. Thanks again. And yeah, this will be up on the blog. I can't wait.
Perfect. See y'all.
Hang out there. I'm going to stop broadcasting here.